Welcome back to Speaking with Confidence, a podcast that helps you build the soft skills that lead to real results. Communication, storytelling, public speaking, and showing up with confidence in every conversation that counts. I'm Tim Newman, a recovering college professor turned communication coach, and I'm thrilled to guide you on a journey to becoming a powerful communicator. Today, we've got a historical episode for you today. We've got Rachael Edmondson-Clarke back with us. I'm sure you all remember she was on with us last month, and she's only the second person to have a second episode with us. So Rachael, thank you so much for spending some time with us again today. I'm looking forward to kind of finishing up what we started a couple weeks ago.
Tim, I'm so excited to be back with you, and thank you for having me on the show. I feel incredibly privileged to be only the second person to appear in your episodes twice. So thank you for having me on.
Oh, you've got such a great story, and you're such a personable person, and the way you share your stories and the way that you share information to help and add value to the listeners, it makes me happy. It makes my heart happy. And I'm sure that it comes across because, we've talked a little bit about this. It doesn't really matter what we do. I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we're providing value to the people that we're serving. It's not about us. It's about helping them, reach their goals and reach what they want to do.
Oh, absolutely. And when it's about something more than ourselves, it feels a lot more meaningful and rewarding, I think. So, and
Absolutely.
You lead your heart, Tim. It's so clear and obvious to me.
Well, thank you. So let's pick up kind of where we left off. We didn't really get to talk too much about the communication piece and how important that is in professional growth and personal growth and what that actually does for us in terms of sharing our message. And we did talk a little bit about, you started your career in your mom's beauty salon.
I did. Yes.
So talk about that from the communication piece, because how old were you? You were 13, 14?
Yeah, I was young. I started at the age of 12.
Oh,
So
12.
it was
Okay. Yeah.
12 to 21, pretty much. Of course, at 12, I was sweeping the floors. I was making teas and coffees. So it was a hair and beauty salon. And by the age of 14, I'd said to my mum, gosh, I really am bored of making teas and coffees and sweeping the floor up. Can you please train me to do something else? And so the thing that was most obvious was going to be the reception. And it was a busy salon. So we had over 300 clients a week. We would have, I think, more than 20 staff. And I would be on reception all day on a Saturday, which was an incredibly busy day for the salon back then. And so be managing multiple stylists' columns for all of their work, as well as, a large volume of clients coming in from 8:30 in the morning right through up until 7 p.m. in the evening. I had 2 telephone lines. So it was the days before the internet when people would phone up for their hair appointments. But that meant that I would sometimes be juggling 2 telephone lines that would be ringing, and sometimes a sea of people in front of that reception desk, as well as the needs of the stylists and the other members of staff working around me. So I would say I had to learn pretty quickly how to deal with the public, how to get the best out of the team that I was helping to kind of, I suppose I was orchestrating things in many, many respects, and to balance all of that.
And so what was your big takeaway from that point? Because I'm sure that at that age, I wouldn't say you're scared or petrified, but you obviously don't want to make mistakes because it's your mom. You don't want to let your mom down, but you know the importance of it. So what was one of the takeaways that you came away with?
Well, I don't know that I would have said this straight away, but looking back at that time now, I think one of the things that I learnt to do quite instinctively, and we do all naturally do this, but was to read people's body language and pick up on their energy and vibration. So where the reception desk was for the salon, there were 2 glass doors, one to the outside, then a very short hallway or corridor, and then a second door with glass. So I used to catch people as they were walking in through that first door, and it would give me a few seconds to learn to read their body language and make some assessment
Yeah.
of how they were by the time they'd got to the front of my desk. And bear in mind, I might have been doing something else at that time. I could well have had 2 telephones, one on each ear, talking to people. And I'd also be, eye out for them, or somebody coming round who was coming to pay, or perhaps someone who'd been sat waiting in reception, or a member of the team coming towards me. I really needed to be very vigilant and hypersensitive to, like, where are these people at, so that I could match and mirror with their energy. If someone was coming in looking a bit, flustered and stressed and like they needed dealing with quickly, that my
Yes.
I would play that back. If somebody looked like they needed some empathy or some, like, a cup of tea and calming down, then I would help with that. So it's that reading of the non-verbal communication, I think I really was able to build a sensitivity through that role.
Yeah, and that I'm glad you brought that point up, because it's so important. Body language, tells us things before we even open our mouths or before they open their mouths. And I used to joke, and I still joke with my kids on this. I've got 2 daughters and they're older now. I could tell when they came down the steps in the morning, get ready for school, whether I should talk to them or not, or whether what I should say or what I shouldn't say. And I could tell almost immediately. And it took me a little bit to get to that point. But, if you can notice those things, and I joke about that, but in reality is if you can notice those things in the people that you're dealing with, that's a big piece of building trust and building that connection, so that you can actually have that conversation or meet their needs without going through a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And it's reminding ourselves, isn't it, that
Mhm.
only 7% of our communication is the words that we use. The other 93% of communication is how we say it. So through our tone of voice and our nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
And I think that's something to be mindful of in today's world, where we send a lot of WhatsApp or text messages or emails, that so much of
Yeah.
the meaning behind that communication is lost in that written word. So and the other thing that I think you talking there as well is that you link this quite rightly back to trust, because we are very good at reading people as
Mhm.
human beings. And when somebody is masking something, or they're not being congruent with what they're
Mhm.
saying and their body language, they're telling you that they really believe in something, but actually their body language is suggesting doubt. You're not going to build trust with that
Right.
individual. So, being congruent is also, I think, really important.
It is, because I liken it back to being an educator. If I'm standing in front of a class, or if I'm standing in front of an audience, or doing a keynote or a team meeting, if I'm not being honest, if I'm not being authentic, they're going to see through it really, really quick. And
Mm,
it doesn't take long. And uh, whatever trust or whatever authority you've built can be lost in seconds by
mm,
not being congruent.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you go from working in your mom's salon, and then you get to the point where you're the president and vice president of the Professional Speaking Association in the United Kingdom and Ireland. What's Walk us through your career from that perspective, because I think that's the one. I think it's awesome, because you go from a 12-year-old to leading an organization that is so important in terms of how we of how we get things done. right? Communication is so important. And now you're leading that organization. How did that process happen?
Oh gosh. Well, there's a lot of time. I'm an old fogey now, Tim. Oh dear. So yes, there's a lot of life that's been lived and a lot
Yes.
of experience that's been gained along that journey. But a very quick rundown was that I finished university when I was 21, 22, and went into my first role. Which included some fantastic training on presenting with impact, because my first role out of university, I went to work for Mars, and I used to sell their vending machines
Oh, wow.
around the Midlands area in the UK. And presenting with impact, if you're selling, was a really key part of the role. And in fact, I still have to this day the little framework that they gave us. I've got it in a tiny little laminated card, and still put my hands on it now underneath my desk here, right where I'm sat. And if your listeners would like to see that, I am more than happy to take a photograph of that, because I still use some of those very simple practices around how do we structure really good presentations. I still use it today. So it's very old, but it's very treasured and very loved. And I'm happy to take a picture of that and share that with the listeners.
Oh, please do. Please do.
So I will do that.
Because it doesn't really matter. I mean, those tried and true principles last forever, right? I mean, there's nothing really new.
No, it's, really, really good, really good stuff. And I think the other thing, just to share from a speaking perspective, is that whilst I was growing up, I was also part of an amateur dramatics society. So
Okay.
I really loved doing the stage and the theatre. And I'm sure that helped in some respects when I started in the corporate world, because I moved from sales eventually into marketing. And then as in the marketing roles that I did, not only at Mars, but also at another chocolate company in the UK called Thornton's. And I ultimately became their head of product strategy for them, where I was having to present on a regular basis, whether that be ideas to the board and to the exec team, or whether it be selling ideas from a brand change perspective, new product ideas, to sometimes 300 members of the factory team that were going to be executing it. And so you wanted them to have the same level of care and compassion and passion, sorry, not compassion, and passion for what they were doing. And so that was that I think some of my prior experience was helpful for that. I always remember just one little story. I had been working on a brand relaunch for the biggest brand in the company, and I really wanted to engage with everybody across the business with the launch. And so I had turned up at the factory at 6 o'clock in the morning to be able to present to those that were starting their shift at that time. And all I could do was to beam some slides up onto a really big blank wall in the factory. And I remember at just before 6 o'clock, all these people descending into the factory in their white coats and hairnets and coming towards me. It was like a sea of people. There were so many people. And for a moment, it felt like I was back on those stages again when I was doing the amateur dramatics. And those really big stage lights with the the flaps that kind of that direct the light. I felt like this light was like totally on me as all these people were coming towards me, and I had this slight moment of panic and dread and thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And then this was the metaphor that I used, and it's helped me so many times since in speaking. Instead of thinking of that stage light on me, because that's how it felt in that moment, it was like I it was like I turned it round and I pointed it on that audience. And I said to myself in that moment, and I don't even know where this came from, but in that moment, I said to myself, this isn't about me. This is about these people that are showing up here at 6 o'clock in the morning. And this is about me connecting with them in a way that they can feel as passionate about this as I do.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it didn't become about me. It became about my connection with those people that were in front of me. And all of a sudden, all that fear, all that dread, it all just disappeared, because now it's me making connection and talking to each one of them. And I'll never forget going into the factory several months later. And we'd been making, so these were assorted chocolates, so in really beautiful chocolate boxes. And they and one of the things that the team in the factory had to do was to hand position a bow, a beautiful ribbon on the box. And I can remember somebody calling me over saying, Rachael, am I getting this bow in just the right place? And she wanted to check with me that she was getting it right. And I was like, this is brilliant, because this is several months after I've done that presentation. And she's still thinking and wanting to make sure, can I just check, is this right? Are you happy? And yeah, just beautiful.
And I love that. I love that, because it's such an illustration that I think people truly, truly forget, and especially in that situation, the people that are a brand's biggest cheerleaders and supporters are those frontline workers. They take such pride in their products or services, and they're the ones that are doing this by word of mouth. When they go home, they're talking about all these things that are going on and the quality of the product, and they own that internally. And you made them feel like they belonged, like they were truly a fabric of the organization, and their role truly, truly mattered in how the customers, viewed and consumed the product.
Yeah, absolutely. It was critical to me that there was that level of engagement, which hadn't been done in a really long time in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, as you say, it's so important. And fast forward, on from that, oh gosh, another 10 years, perhaps even more, to be honest, maybe more like 12. And I find myself out of corporate world. I started my own training and coaching business. And I happened to meet a wonderful lady who we go out for hot chocolate for. And she's the current vice president of the Professional Speaking Association. And she tells me about this wonderful organization. And I think to myself, well, if I'm on my feet and I'm delivering training, there's got to be a thing or two these professional speakers can teach me about how I can better communicate with my training. And I'm interested to learn. I'm a perpetual student and always learning. And I would say, albeit that, and I know, Tim, you'll feel the same way as me with this. I mean, I'm here just sharing some experiences, but by no means do I know it all. There are just some things I've picked up along the way that I'm very happy to share. And so that was how I got invited into the Professional Speaking Association. And a little over 2 years later, I found myself running the East Midlands region.
That's awesome. I mean, it's but you bring up a critical piece that I talk about a lot, and that's that whole idea of continuous learning. And I spoke with somebody yesterday about, she was telling a story about how she knows somebody who's going to get more degrees, this, that, and the other thing. That's great. I'm not just discounting that, but we can be continuous learners and getting better at our craft every day, whatever it is that we're doing. And I think it's important that I try and stress with my listeners. I kind of take them on some of the journeys that I go on to be a better speaker, to be a better communicator, to be a better podcast host. And like one of the things that I'm working on now with a coach is telling 3-minute stories, taking a story that has meaning or has a purpose that I may take 5 minutes or have been taking 5 or 6 minutes to tell, to getting it down to a succinct 3-minute story so that it really comes across so the point comes across quickly and I don't lose that audience. So that's what one of the things I'm working on now. But those are things that can happen by joining, like you said, the Professional Speakers Association. So what were some of the things that you learned, and was there anything in there that you really found fascinating about that process?
There are many. So I'm still part of the Professional Speaking Association, and I'm still learning so much. I think back to your point around learning as well, is that you've got to put it into practice. It's great. You get fabulous ideas. You see people that are doing things, but if you're not actually practicing these things, going back to that presenting with impact course right at the start of my career, I can remember one of the most uncomfortable things that they made us do as young 20-somethings was video us doing a presentation and then to watch it back. I mean, toe-curlingly, uncomfortable. However, when we do these things, when we actually put it into practice and we start to experience that in our bodies, that's when it really kind of hits home. And the Professional Speaking Association has given me a wonderful platform to be able to practice. The first thing that I did was that I signed up for a competition that they run annually. It's called the Speaker Factor.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I saw the video. I saw that. I did. You did a phenomenal job with that. You truly did.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, that was the truth is that was the product of months of hard work. So just for the listeners listening in, the Speaker Factor is a very odd animal in many ways, because you have 5 minutes to tell your story, to speak about something that you care about to the audience, and your audience are professional speakers. They are your peers, and in many respects that if public speaking is something that you're scared of anyway, imagine doing it to a bunch of people that's actually what they do professionally for their career. And they're going to judge you on it.
Yes.
It's kind of, there's another level of uncomfortableness there, I think, for many of us when we first start out. But it's a very warm and welcoming organization, and the feedback and things is dealt with very, very, very well. So they would judge you on things like your stagecraft and your storytelling and your bookability. And to start with, there's regional heats, and then each region has a winner, and those winners from the 12 regional heats go through to the finals. And the year that I did make it through to the final, we were actually hosting the Global Speakers Summit. So the Professional Speaking Association in the UK and Ireland is affiliated to the Global Speaking Association, and we were hosting the Global Speakers Summit that year in Dublin, and so we had professional speakers from all around the world watching the final. So that video is of me at the Global Speakers Summit in Dublin several years ago, and as I say, it really was the product of many months of hard work, of thinking about how you could really convey something of value within what is a relatively short space of time to be on stage talking in that way. And it was one of the best things that I have done in recent years. So back to that, putting it into practice, having a go. If you are thinking that you want to speak more confidently, then get out there and do it. Find the opportunities. There are organizations and associations that are desperate for people to come and talk to them about things, whether it's the WI or whether it could be a scout group, or there's so many people that would welcome somebody who's passionate about a topic or a subject to be going and talking to them. So just get out there and practice.
Right. And that's the key. You don't get better by not doing it. You only get better by doing it. And even if you think that you're not good, you're going to get better by doing it. Because even if you don't have somebody telling you, you're going to be able to tell what you need to work on a lot of times. Like I would say for me, 4 years ago, I didn't think stagecraft had really any business in what I was doing. I didn't even think about it until, somebody said, your message would come across so much better if you would do this and stop doing this, and
Yes.
it comes, for me, somebody who's I'm a creature of habit, that's work. Changing something that just comes natural to be able to convey my message more. I went kicking and screaming down the road doing it, but I did it, and they were right,
Yeah.
but it's things like that,
Mhm. Wow.
learning things, learning how to connect with people. You're gonna do that just by getting out there and talking to people. It's gonna happen.
Absolutely. And you know what? I left a bit of a juicy bit out of that story of my my journey to the Global Speaker Summit and that Speaker Factor final. So being completely transparent, I'm going to share with you all now that I didn't win the regional heat. In fact, I got up there and I spoke at the regional heat and I was utterly, utterly disappointed with my performance. I ran over time, which for professional speakers is
Can't do it.
like, you can't do it. You just can't do it.
Uh-huh.
I was looking at the floor. I was trying to remember what I was going to say. It was awful. Absolutely. I could have crawled into a hole and, stayed there for a week. And I was really fortunate in many respects. The guy who won, he wasn't able to go to the final. And so by default, the opportunity came to me to represent the region at the final. And so I think this is the other big lesson. I learned so much from, and it wasn't a failure, that regional heat, but I learned so much about what I needed to do and how I was going to get there. And I had so much incredible support to really help me up my game by the time I got to the Global Speakers Summit. That getting out there, giving it a go, and even if you feel like I did, like post-performance anxiety, let's call it that, we've all experienced that from time to time, and just to then get, to learn from that, dust yourself off. And that's what the community in the Professional Speaking Association is really good for as well, because you've got those people that will help pick you back up and get you back out there again. And I can tell you that when I didn't win at the finals, but when I finished my talk on that stage that day, I looked down at the timer, and as I said my last word, the timer clock clicked 0, 0, 0, 0. I was spot on my time. I delivered it 100 times better than I had done at a regional level. And I felt I could be pleased with myself and what I had achieved. And so I walked off that stage absolutely buzzing. It didn't matter whether I won or not, because of the journey that I had been on to get there.
That's awesome. That's such a good story of resiliency and vulnerability, admitting that, we're not always on. I mean, there's bumps in the road, and it's how we deal with them and how we bounce back from it. I number one, I never would have known that didn't happen, but everybody struggles. It doesn't. I mean, even the best people will have those hiccups, and it's okay. And like you said, in that scenario with other professional speakers, they're not judging you. They've been there.
Yes.
Every single one of those people has been in your shoes, and they want you to do well, and they're cheering for you, and they want you to succeed, and they want to help you. That's the bottom line. They're not. That's the opposite of judging you, which is what we tell ourselves.
Yes, Absolutely. And I talk about all this help that I had along the way. And one little thing which I will share, because it's a little bit of fun, and whether it helped me or not, I felt like it helped me
Mhm.
on the day. And that was, I spoke to, he was actually my old neighbor. So where I grew up at home, he lived next door but one to me. And actually there's an American connection here, because he now lives in America. He's an actor on Days of Their Lives.
Oh,
And I think that's a show you have
yeah, it
out
is.
in
It
America.
is. Mhm.
Yes. So he said he's an actor on the show. And I said to him, right, I've got to learn this word for word, because it's like 5 minutes long. Like, you're learning
Mhm.
lines every day of the week. Like, tell me, how do you do this? And his wife is on Broadway. And so he helped me with the lines. He helped me in terms of how to remember them. And then he said to me, right, so, Rachel, my wife, one of the things she always does just before a brand new Broadway opening, it's about half an hour before she goes on, she eats a banana and some dark chocolate. I don't know. So all the other contestants, half an hour before this Global Speakers Summit Speaker Factor final, we're all kind of just around the table, getting mic'd up or what have you. And I'm
Mhm.
there, stuffing my face with a banana and eating chocolate. And they're all looking at me going, how can you eat right now? And I'm like, competitive advantage.
Exactly. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So anyway, I'm sure there's somebody who's got better scientific knowledge than I have that will possibly tell us what the ingredients are in the or the the things that a banana and some dark chocolate will do that might just help calm our nerves, and as being a good that maybe it's those endorphins that all come through that'll be in a good place for when you start. So I just, a bit of fun,
Exactly.
wanted to share that as
But
well.
but I think it's awesome. You found what works for you. I mean, because I'm a pacer. I pace, and I'm having the conversation in my head, and I'm running down the time. 3 minutes and you got to be here. 7 minutes I got to be here. 15 minutes I got to be there, and running through that, which may be helpful, maybe not, but that's what works for me. It may not work for somebody else, but finding your way. That's, I don't know that I can stress that enough, because, of all the people that go out and have to talk in front of people, we all have to find our own way of doing it. There's not one right way. We can help you. We can guide you. We can do these things, but ultimately you've got to find what's actually going to work for you.
Absolutely. And another thing that I absolutely found super valuable just before going on stage was to take a few minutes outside the main room
Mhm.
and to do some of that power posing and visualizing and just thinking about the audience, not about me. And and then when I walk back in the room, it's almost strangely like I can completely feel it now. I walk back into the room with a completely different energy. There was no nervous energy. I stood at the back of the room. I
Mhm.
watched the speaker that was in the competition directly before me. And I stood from a place of, this is me here to to learn, to receive, to
Great.
connect, to be with these people in this room. That energy is quite expansive and open armed and outward reaching, and it's not at all about me and my
Right.
performance. And that, I think, really helped me to deliver on that day.
Are you going to go through that process again?
Uh, well, so they have now so this year is the first year that they're doing it. They've done another competition. So the speaker factor was always for new and emerging speakers.
Okay.
Now got a special competition for professional speakers, which is the category I would now fall into. So maybe, Tim, I'm not going to
You
give too much.
should. You should. You should. You should. You should. And so some of the stuff that I'm doing with the John Maxwell leadership team is, is going through the process of stage time. And I tell people, whether you've done it before, whether you haven't done it before, it's, everybody should do it because you get that practice. You get that practice of telling that story. You get the coaching of, figuring out what that big story is, and then getting it down to what it really means, what the piece that you really want to say. And then whether you get chosen for stage time or whether you get chosen to compete, that you now have something in your toolbox that you can pull out at any time, and for any speaking engagement. Maybe change it a little bit here or there, but you already have a pre-crafted story that you could tell that's going to make a point. And so for me right now, I'm working on 5 different stories. And just think about that for the audience. Think about that, right? 5 3-minute stories. That's 15 minutes. And by March, let's just say by March, those 5 stories are going to be refined to the point. If I were to go and do a keynote on something, maybe 3 of them are going to fit that keynote. Okay. Yeah. I can insert them and it will help build that whole keynote and tell whatever thing you want to do. But that's the piece why you should do it, Rachael. I mean, because it's whatever we have up here, they will coach you to get it down to the point that is actually going to resonate and add value to the audience.
Absolutely. It's such a key thing, that storytelling, isn't it?
Yeah.
And even just thinking about, and I think so. One of the things that I've learned through the Professional Speaking Association is that the stories don't have to be all big heroic stories. Mm-mm. And I think sometimes some of us as speakers can maybe get fooled into thinking, well, I've not climbed Everest, or I'm not a Paralympian, or I've not got, one of these huge heroic stories to share. But actually, they can have their limitations, because if your audience members aren't, elite endurance athletes or something like that, then all of a sudden you telling a huge heroic story, whilst it can be inspiring and incredibly interesting, for them to make that connection back, kind of with well, how do I do this then? How do I make that leap? What do I do? You've got to really, help connect the dots with that. So I think to remember that the stories can even be the little tiny stories. Like, yes. I tell a story about my toothbrush battery running out.
That's the worst. That's what are you going to do?
That's a mini, but it helps me illustrate something that I talk about. That's a mini everyday kind of scenario. So I would just remind everybody that those stories, little ones, pub stories, as I would call them, because I'm from the UK, of course, but little everyday stories, pub stories, and heroic stories, they all have their place.
They do,
and they're all super valuable.
All right, so I'm going to tell you one. So I'm working on one that combines where my wife gave me up for New Year's resolution. I gave her up for Lent, and when I asked her dad if I could marry her, he said no. So I'm working on a funny story about that, and now we've been married for almost 30 years.
Oh gosh. That sounds incredible.
So it's, I'm working on it, so I don't really want to tell, but it's a funny story. But it's also a story about, just because somebody says or does something, if you work on it, it'll work. Everything will turn out. But well, anyway, we'll just leave it there and we'll keep working on it.
You're leaving us on a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
I want to know the story. I want to know the story.
Well, essentially, my current wife is my second wife. I call her my forever wife. My first wife was a starter wife. And when I met her, I told her, I'm never getting married again. And this is, almost 30 years ago. And she said, okay. And when our personalities are very different, are very, very different. And that's what kind of said, well, she said, well, I'm done with you. I'm giving you up for New Year's. New Year's resolution lasted about a week. And then I gave her up for Lent. And then we moved in together like a week after. That didn't work out either. And her grandfather was a colonel in the Army, and he came to the house and said, well, as long as you live with him and not be married, I'm never going to answer your phone call. I'm never going to receive a letter. And I said, well, I can't do that. I'm not doing that to you. So I asked her dad to marry. He said no. And we eloped.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And
oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, when I asked her to marry me, she said she had to think about it. I forgot about that piece. She had to think about it.
Oh, there's so much in this, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you remind me, because so we had a brilliant, she's still there, brilliant woman join the Professional Speaking Association a couple of years ago. And I would, people should definitely look her up. Her name's Beth Sherman. She's a 7 times Emmy Award-winning comedy writer. And so she's written for the Oscars, for Tom Hanks, for Ellen DeGeneres, for the David Letterman show. And what she talks about is the incredible ability of humor to connect. And when we can connect through our humor, we're in a much better place to have the influence and the impact that we want to have with our audiences.
Yeah.
And so she honest. And one of the things she always says to me is, truth is funny, Rachael. Truth is funny. And there's so much in that.
There really is. And you've got to give the audience, I think, time to digest the humor as well. So you can't just say something funny and then just keep moving on. You've got to let them dive into it and embrace it, because that's what really makes that impact as well. So do you
know, I think the humor. So I got caught today. So true story from my life earlier today. I was due to be delivering a training session to 25 senior leaders, large corporate organization. I didn't realize it until I got in the room today, but the CEO of the company was also there listening to this particular training session that I was going to be running for 2 hours. Half an hour before we're due to go live, I'm on with the lady from the company who's brilliant at helping me back of house. And my computer's not running properly. Brand new computer. I say to her, I'm going to turn it off and turn it back on again, because often solves everything, right?
Right.
My computer would not switch back on again. No word of a lie. I tried it 7 times. I'm on the phone to Apple, like, what is going on? Uh-oh. I do have a laptop, but it is covered in dust because I dusting it off because I haven't had it out for ages. And you can imagine starting that up, downloading the documents. And, that in starting that meeting today with that audience, because I was a little bit late and because the senior leader who was sponsoring the event needed to kick off without me properly being there and all of the rest of it. When I did come on, it's like, well, this whole technology thing is proof that even inanimate objects can hold a grudge, and it's just, it does feel some days that technology has got a life of its own and it's completely against you. I'm just honestly saying to people, this, we worked really hard. We met half an hour yesterday and this morning to get things up and running, believe it or not. And just something that is a little bit sometimes self-deprecating, gosh, I can't get my words out there, or even just that light little bit of humor, even when things go wrong. Because I think as a speaker, it can be easy to get quite het up about that, and can cause you And I was concerned, of course I was, but just being able to keep your cool in those moments, make a little bit of a joke and a laugh about it, and then move on.
Yeah.
So humor, just absolutely amazing. You've got so many humorous bits in that story. I cannot wait to hear.
Yeah. Well, that's my style as well. You know, it's the self-deprecating humor. It's the dry deadpan stuff. And,
Yeah.
but you know, that's just my way. It's just my style. And I think sometimes, you know, being that conversational style really does disarm even the critics in the room, who may not agree with what you're saying, who may not like what you're saying. That's really kind of just disarming in a way that kind of works for me.
Yeah.
Well, Rachael, thank you so much for spending some time with us again. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I love our conversations. But tell people again where they can connect with you.
The best place to connect with me would be through my website, which is elevar.co.uk, and that's spelled ELLEVAR. Or to connect with me on LinkedIn. If anything that we've been talking about has resonated with you here, I would love for you to connect. Drop me a message and let me know. And it's just Rachael Edmondson-Clarke. And if there's an extra letter that you can add to my name, be sure to do it, because then you'll get the spelling correct. It's AEL for Rachael, Clarke with an E, and it's Edmondson. So yes, there we go. Rachael Edmondson-Clarke on LinkedIn or at elevar.co.uk.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Tim, thank you. Take care too.
Be sure to visit speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com to get your free ebook, The Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers and How to Overcome Them. You can also register for the Forming for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change the world. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.